Oh, are we on? Oh, supposed to be on the camera at 8 o'clock. Okay, well, yeah. The heck with it. Welcome back to the Historical Light Masonic Podcast. I'm not Alex Powers. I'm Daren Kellerman. We have got a great episode lined up for you tonight. I have two fantastic guests from the Grand Jurisdiction of Kansas. No Alex, no Robert tonight. Great show lined up for you. We will be back right after this. Welcome back to the Historical Light Masonic Podcast, dedicated to illuminating our past and bringing our Masonic history to light since 2016. And now, enjoy the show. And we're back. Thank you for joining us on Historical Light Masonic Podcast. Again, my name is Daren Kellerman, and thanks for joining us on this Friday night at the Passover season. And, you know, it is great to be here with these two guys. I've known them for quite a while. They let me choose my guests, and I couldn't ask for better guys. But first off, I am Daren Kellerman. I am a past master of Delphi and Lodge Garnet, past Grand Master of Kansas, current secretary of a couple lodges. But a lot of you already know me, but let's get to know these two guys. Let me introduce them, then they'll give us their biography. First off is Right Worshipful Jeffrey Boykin Sr. He is the Deputy Grand Master of the Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Kansas, and Right Worshipful Johnnie Eaves, the Senior Grand Warden of the Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Kansas. Brothers, welcome to the show. Brother Jeffrey, please give us your biography.
I'm Jeff Boykin. I've been held out of Whittle Sons Lodge number 17, Kansas City, Kansas. I'm also a past master out of Whittle Sons Lodge number 17. I have traveled through the Grand Orator, which at one point in time was the Right Worshipful, and also traveled through Right Worshipful Lecture, then Junior Warden, Senior Warden. Now I'm sitting as the Deputy Grand Master of the Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Kansas.
Thank you. Brother Johnnie?
Hello, my name is Johnnie Eaves, and I currently serve as the Right Worshipful Senior Grand Warden for the Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of the state of Kansas and its jurisdiction, where the Honorable Terry L. Winbush served as the Most Worshipful Grand Master. A little bit about me. So I started the Masonic journey way back in 1988. I traveled through several different jurisdictions, ended up here in Kansas by way of the military. I served 23 years in the military, and this is the place I chose to retire. I've been here off and on in Kansas since 1995. Just like the Right Worshipful Deputy Grand Master, I've served in several different capacities within the Grand Lodge, starting with the Worshipful Senior Deacon, Worshipful Junior Deacon, then went on to be the Right Worshipful Grand Orator, Grand Lecturer, Grand Junior Warden, and I currently serve as the Right Worshipful Senior Grand Warden. Good evening.
Good evening, and thank you. We'll be right back in just a moment with some of tonight's topics, but first, I've got to do some business for Alex here, so excuse me, brothers, while I do that. This is a viewer-supported show. So I want to encourage everybody to join me in being a Patreon supporter. You can do that for Historical Light at historicallight.com/support. And what's really cool, and Alex loves it, if you donate or support at a level that's very unique, something like, $30.57 or $13.57, something that's a Masonic number. He likes that a lot. But this show has been going since 2016. We want to continue to grow this show and get better and better. And if you're listening to us live on YouTube or Facebook, thank you. If you're on the rewatch We appreciate that. We're also on your favorite podcast where you get that on iTunes or Spotify. And also, do not forget, Historical Light and HL Media is hosting the 2022 Masonic Con Kansas coming up in the Metro Kansas City area on August 27th, 2022, bringing in a ton of top-notch speakers, and they're bringing in Alex as well, and then Robert, our other co-host of Historical Light. There's going to be a lot of very educational topics. There is going to be a festive board afterwards. There are only 35 full tickets left for that. So if you want to go there, MasonicConKansas. I've lost my thing. MasonicCon.Kansas. There'll be a link in the description for this. So there's that. Alex is just so happy that I'm butchering all of his stuff tonight. Isn't that nice? You know? So, brothers, again, welcome. And for those watching and listening, I just want to give a little background to what's happened to get us three here together. Alex and Robert had prior engagements, so they asked me to guest host. So thank you very much for that. But my initial choice, guys, was Grand Master Most Worshipful Terry Winbush. And I've known the Grand Master for many years. And he quickly found that he had some other obligations and threw you guys under the bus. And which is only appropriate because as Grandmaster Winbush was coming up the line, I had asked him to be a guest speaker at the Midwest Conference of Grand Lodges. And Grandmaster Coleman quickly threw, I believe he was then the Grand Senior Warden, Terry Winbush, under the bus to make that presentation for him. So Prince Hall Grandmaster tradition is to have a family event and assist his up-and-coming officers with public speaking. So, and I appreciate you guys coming on. Further backstory for everybody watching and listening. When I spoke with Jeffrey and Johnny, they tell me we've never done a podcast before. So this is their first time. And guys, you're already doing great. And it is three bald guys and a little Freemasonry. And there is a lot going on in Kansas. Actually, there always has been. And this week, we've seen some great things across our country. In Georgia, we just saw mutual recognition between the two Grand Lodges there. What are your thoughts on that?
I got a chance to observe it. I guess it's on me. I got a chance to observe it. I'm actually Facebook friends with the Most Worshipful Grand Master of Georgia, and I thought that was a moving ceremony. I know we had mutual recognition some years ago, and I don't think we went to that level of detail to ensure that everybody understood what was happening. That ceremony was awesome. I can't say enough about it. My hat's off to that both grandmasters. That's been long overdue, very long overdue.
Deputy Grandmaster, your thoughts? My thoughts on that. It was very good to see both lodges coming together. For the South to join hands with each other is very good and very enlightening. So hopefully the South will come through like the rest of us is coming through. And it dawns on me as we start speaking, I probably should make the disclaimer of the opinions that we give tonight are our own and not necessarily representing the Grand Lodges that we belong to. So I don't want anybody to think that what we're speaking is representative of the Grand Lodge of Kansas, AF and AM, or of the Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge. These are our own opinions. So just to keep us out of trouble with our Grand Masters.
Absolutely.
So it's so wonderful. I know we have a few grand jurisdictions left that do not recognize each other. Here in Kansas, we have recognized each other since 1998, but I know that it started a little bit before that here in Kansas. But the amazing part to me as I looked at it was we had the first meeting between our Grand Lodges was in 1997. And then our compact was signed in 1998, just like that. The work I know behind the scenes was incredible. And what I think happened in Georgia is great. I think Kansas did it one better. And of course, I would agree. We didn't probably make the big, of course, social media wasn't a thing. but we did it all in one shot. We recognized each other. We allowed dual membership and visitation all in one shot. And I think that is just wonderful. A lot of people don't realize that about Kansas, that we are a true brotherhood here, even though we share almost the same jurisdictional boundaries.
That is true. On certain websites I see out there, we have brothers within the state of Kansas that recognize that we are like one brotherhood. And when AF&M call on us, the Prince Hall brothers, we show up, or we try to show up, and we just make that brotherhood connection, like family.
So, Jeffrey, what was your first experience with the AF and AM Masons, the working together, or just even interacting with them?
My first experience with the AF and AM was we did a rededication of the Washington High School cornerstone on 78th and Leavenworth Road here in Kansas City, Kansas. That was my first action with us guys, and I wasn't part of the ceremony, so I walked up in there with my apron on and my work uniform. I was the only one out of everyone wasn't Masonically dressed, but I was well received from the Kansas School Board, because they know I was in uniform with the school district, and I had a Mason uniform on. So it went off very good, and it was very good overall.
Brother Johnnie, what was your first experience?
So as I was saying in my introduction, I have belonged to several different jurisdictions, and along the way, I have seen some interactions. But as it relates to Kansas, I would say my first interaction with the entire body would be that dedication that we did at the Capitol. Now, we've had some meetings prior to that, but the dedication at that Capitol was a big thing for me. Just to look out and see brothers from both sides, from Prince Hall as well as the AF and AM, that was a moving experience for me. I come from a small place in Alabama, and that place, I'm not for sure if Alabama has even reached out to try to do the same thing, but Kansas is just, we're leading the way. And those things that we did when I first got here, especially the Capitol ceremony, man, that's just to be emulated by the rest of the body. Awesome ceremony, awesome experience. I'll never forget it.
It was. For me, I'd had some, when I got appointed to the Grand Line, the Grand Lodge officers were having one or two picnics or joint meetings a year. And I can tell you, I was scared to death, because I had no clue what I was doing, let alone be invited to these. And it turns out it's just a picnic. And the Prince Hall brothers are just like me. And I remember going through the chow line, and the guy holding open the cooler was past Grand Master Roy Althouse. And of course, I'm just in awe. And he's like, "Are you going to take a water or not?" And this is a past Grand Master talking to little old me. And so I was very impressed from the start with the way, and I don't know what else I was expecting. I mean, just all the drama everywhere else, and then you come here and it's a family picnic, and it's always been that way.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I apologize to interrupt you, but I just thought about an experience that I had with Union 7 Lodge in Junction City. They allowed us to utilize their building for a third degree ceremony, and a lot of their membership attended the ceremony that we had. I think we had about 4, maybe 5 brothers that we were raising to the third degree. And it was a very funny when we got to the confusion piece of the ceremony. Most of the guys from the AF and AM kind of ran over to the corner, like, it was like, they was like, what's going on, So I think at that moment they realized that our ceremonies are not quite the same. But it was funny.
Well, and I'm going to blame that on the fact that the Prince Hall lineage comes from Ohio and ours comes from Missouri. And we know how Missouri is a little screwy. Just saying. Just saying. I do want to come back and delve into that capital dedication, because I think that was a shining moment for Freemasonry across the country.
Yes, sir.
But Jeffrey, could you just tell me, do you have any other family in Masonry, and what made you decide to join the craft? Just so we can all have a little bit of basis of where we come from.
Oh, I got a story for you. Me as coming up, I was about 35 years old, and I was looking to get into a certain organization, but I didn't know Masonry was on my heart. But I was just checking throughout the community on different organizations, and I had ran across Masonry. So I was trying to ask a few brothers around, what's going on with the Masonic order? What's this G mean and this square and compass? And nobody would give me no information. So one of my lodge brothers, one of my friends was Chris Blyrock. At the time, he was a past master out of Whittle Sons. And, he's my friend. We grew up, went to junior high school together, high school together. We was good friends. So I went across Chris, and Chris said, hey, you want to know about Masonry? He said, come on. Past master at the time, but Frank Lavender. We having to get together at Frank's place. He said, come on now, see how many Masons you know. So I went on out to Frank's house and Frank's ranch, and almost everyone there I went to school with. I'm like, wow. I'm like, it was just everybody, even the high school I did that was opponents of, they was a member of the Masonic order. So I'm like, I got to get in this. So I went ahead and petitioned the lodge back in 2007. So I became a Master Mason in 2008. So, and by the way, April 27th, 2022, I'll have 20 years of service in. So it'd be my 20-year anniversary in about 2 weeks. And so went ahead and joined Masonry. So I'm excited. I didn't tell my parents anything about it. So I got finished, got my third degree. It was on that Saturday. Called my dad on Sunday. Hey, Dad, guess what? I joined Masonry. He's like, what? He said, your uncle's a Mason, your cousin's a Mason. He started running down all these relatives of mine. I did not know. I'm like, wow. So it was, when I put on my petition, I have no one in my family's a Mason. I have about 10 people or 10 family members are in the Masonic order. I didn't know at the time. So that's my little story on how I became a Mason. It's interesting. It's funny to me.
That is amazing. And it's interesting because the very first Prince Hall Mason I ever met that I'm aware of was Grand Master Lavender. I was, again, this was early in that year. I was Grand Steward, Senior Steward, and I'm in a receiving line, scared to death. And here comes this tall, just gaunt-looking man dressed to the nines. I mean, you could run me through the car wash and I wouldn't look as good as this guy did. And he comes down and just shakes my hand and gives me these honors. It's just, I'm just a Grand Senior Steward. And he explains to me how big of an honor it is to represent the craft. And just, that was just so impressive to me. So impressive. Brother Johnnie, any family in Freemasonry, and what got you into it?
Well, what got me into the Masonic order was I was probably around 15, 16 years old, and I recognized an emblem on the back of one of the people in my neighborhood's car. And I kind of went up to him and asked him what it was. And he told me, he says, young man, you're too young to know about these things. And that kind of left a stain on my brain, right? So after that, I went on and joined the Army a few years later. And a guy that I was coaching basketball came up to me and shared with me that he was having an event that weekend, and he invited me out. I went out with him, and it was a bunch of guys. They were doing a car wash, a fundraiser, and I jumped right in and helped him out, and because he was my buddy, and kind of liked the atmosphere. And several weeks later, he offered me a petition. And I finally realized, I put two and two together, that that emblem on the back of that car was this organization. And so I went through back in 1988. That was a few years ago. I got raised in the Texas jurisdiction, and under Worshipful Master Heather Seawood. I'll never forget him. He was a very old man sitting up in a chair. Looked like he was pretty much asleep, but he didn't miss a beat. I tell you that. And very good guy. And I went on, and this year, my brother, youngest brother, matter of fact, last week was his second degree. He's the first one in my family that I know of to become a Mason. And he decided to do that after I made a visit last year. They did a public ceremony and invited me there. And my brother observed the respect and the, the way that they received me. And he told me, he says, man, I got to be a part of that. And so he decided this year that he would become a Mason. And so he's the first one.
Wow.
Yep.
That is just amazing. Thank you guys for sharing that.
Yep.
I know so many people have stories very similar to that, but man, those are very, very powerful stories to me.
Yes, sir.
I think you both touched on the capital dedication that occurred back in 2016, and a lot of people talk about that moment and about how that moment just made him feel and just very proud. And for me, I have those same exact feelings, maybe from a little bit different perspective, but to me, I always say, it was amazing to me having all the Masons of Kansas standing together on the steps of our Capitol building in the middle of the country at noon and professing, our love for each other and just doing what we do and not embarrassed about it. We invited the media. And what I recall during the whole planning of the thing, peace and harmony prevailed. Not that I expected anything different, but I expected there to be some diversion points or something, and there never was. You guys have any thoughts about that event or the lead up to it? Because you both were intricately involved in that. Johnny, you especially.
Looking at your picture here on my screen, above your right and left shoulder is a picture of the event. So it looks like a whole bunch of ants, but it was all of us. Yeah. So if for the viewers out there, if you can just look, I'm right there in the middle. I'm right there, the guy with the white. Yeah, I'm right there. I was there.
That's you.
So,
hey, Deputy, I can see you.
You can see me? Yes. And you right there by me. I see you. Yeah. What you have on that, Johnny?
So that the planning piece was very detailed. A lot of moving pieces. I remember working with past Grand Master Tracy Bloom, going over to AF&AM's Grand Lodge headquarters, sitting down with him, planning out some things, and walking across the street to the Capitol, meeting with some people in the Capitol, and they're looking at us like, you guys are going to do what? And so once it was explained to them, they jumped on board with us, gave us all the support that we needed to get it done. I mean, it was a lot of detail work behind the scene to get that thing done, man. And to see it go from a planning phase to execution, man, I don't think there's anything that can top it.
I would agree. I watch a lot of different, we all do. The people watching and listening, we've all seen different joint events. And what strikes me is that ours was different was most jurisdictions, they have AF and AM on one side, F and AM or Prince Hall on the other side. Two lines, very distinct. Grand jurisdictions are separated. You're not so much with us at all. And the picture that I love, I'm getting goosebumps as I talk to you. The picture I love the most is the picture of us all standing there, the two Grand Masters on the top of the dais and the Grand Officers on the steps down. And you can't tell who belongs to what jurisdiction at all because it's every other one. And for me, I had a moment of panic of how's that work? Because I'm still in that novice role of I can't be giving orders to a Prince Hall brother. That's just doesn't work right. And it might have been you, Jeffrey. I don't remember. My mind is just so. But the answer is like most worshipful. We're all brothers. You're the Grand Master. And it just really set me on a different path then, because there was no, you're not my Grand Master. That's my Grand Master. You're the Grand Master. And Larry Coleman was the Grand Master. And there was no superior rank there. We were there to do business.
Yeah, every now and again I go to YouTube and if anybody want to look up 2016 Kansas Masonic Cornerstone rededication on YouTube, I go by and look at it every so often just to see when you kind of messed me up there, Darren. You remember that?
I do. I do very much.
We was having a good time.
It was a crazy good time. It's weird. I mean, I don't know. To be a part of something that so many people consider to be a big thing. And Johnny, I know you made so many trips over that Capitol.
Oh my God.
So here's a behind the scenes stories for everybody that there's probably only 3 people that know, well, 4 know until now. We were so good in the planning, and we're getting down to, we're a day out, and we'd had some plans for the symbolic cornerstone and stuff. And then the day before, we realized we don't have a cornerstone to pour that corn wine oil on. So most worshipful Coleman, I believe, made the call to Johnny, or maybe it was Tracy that made the call. Tracy Bloom, the Grand Secretary, made the call to Johnny and said, hey, we need a stone. And all I know is when we walked up those steps, there was a cornerstone in the perfect proportions. So, brother, I'm not asking your secrets, but well done under pressure.
That's what we do.
That's what we do, sir. It becomes a norm in Prince Hall.
I presume the next day when you're up there, I think you were pouring, was it the wine you were pouring on that stone? I presume you're going, that's damn right. I did that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
The other thing that I remember is our Grand Marshal, Jose Marrero. He's a drill sergeant. He is precision, just precision. And he had everybody lined up. Unfortunately, the Prince Hall Grand Marshal was also military, but he has flair. And his name escapes me at the moment.
Gary Washington.
Gary Washington. I always forget his first name. And again, if you can see the pictures or watch the video, it's amazing. And in that picture there, the Grand Master just put him right between us because he made that thing pop. And it was just so damn impressive. I mean, everything that happened, I had nothing to do with it, and neither did Grandmaster Coleman. You guys and the almost 1,000 people that were there made that happen. Grandmaster Coleman and I just were fortunate enough to be standing there so we could look down and see everybody. We had a very unique view. We didn't do squat. You guys made that happen. I mean, the Brothers of Kansas Masonry made that happen.
You giving us much too much credit. You know,
No.
it was we was hand in hand. You know, we couldn't do it without y'all, and it worked out.
Everybody worked together behind the scenes, in front of the scenes. It was just, and I hear so many guys saying, "Oh, that was such an event, and it really changed my outlook." Yeah, we did that. We did that. And to hear those brothers down in Georgia being so proud this week of, yeah, we did that finally. I'm so glad that the guys before us did that.
Did that. Yep.
Yeah. The only difference between our Grand Lodges is my math shows 18 years. The AF and AM Grand Lodge started in 1856, Prince Hall Grand Lodge 1875. We're not that far apart. Yep. And I know some people have questions because there's got to be a difference. There's got to be a difference between us. There are, but you guys come from Ohio, we come from Missouri again. But just so people can clear, 18-year-old to be a Mason?
Yes.
Put a petition in? Okay.
Yes.
Got to be a male?
Got to be male.
So far, no women allowed.
No.
Yeah.
No.
I know some co-masonry, I guess, is okay, but this is a fraternity. So a belief in a deity.
Yes, sir.
So I know in some places that's a point of contention. So while here in North America, I think many are Christian. We accept other religions.
We do.
Okay. Have you had that come up yet where the old guys get really wound up if you have a brother of another religion join that's not any of the Christian religions?
We have in our jurisdiction, we have not had that problem at all. Nowhere close so far.
That is great because we've had, and again, predominantly when it happens that I've seen or been around, it's some of the older members. And if we have, just because this hasn't happened, say a Buddhist join, and we put that book of his faith on the altar, it becomes a panic because the Holy Bible gets moved to the side so that brother could take his obligation on his holy book. And to me, that just makes plain sense. Why would you take an obligation on a book of faith that's not yours? It just makes sense to me. When a petition is being voted on, is it to get into the fraternity? Does it have to be a unanimous vote, or can a black ball take them out?
A black ball will take them out. It's got to be unanimous because it's black.
I agree with that. I agree. In some jurisdictions, it takes 2 black balls to get them out. But again, similarity, just 1 here and you're out. Once a brother gets his first degree, is there anything he has to do before he progresses to the second? Is there a mandatory waiting period, or does he have proficiency he has to give back or anything?
Brother Eaves, you want to answer that one?
Normally, the standard is a 30-day period. They come back, they do a proficiency before the lodge. If he passes the proficiency, then he can move on to the next degree. If he does not pass the proficiency, then he's pushed back until such time that he's able to pass it. And that's the norm. But there are some cases where there are exceptions, you know. And
Certainly.
just given the situation, we have to give that determination to the master as well as the Grand Master to be the exception.
There are people around the country either watching this live or listening to it in their car on the podcast that are probably wrecking right now or falling over at the fact that somebody would be rejected or held back on proficiency. But I think there's a lot of us going, yeah, that's the way it's supposed to be.
Well,
go ahead.
You know, when we don't do those things, we get away from tradition, right? And if the brother don't fully understand what it is to be a Mason, those duties and responsibilities, those traditions, and he's walking without that understanding, he's doing a disservice to the Masonic order. He's doing a disservice to the particular jurisdiction in which he belongs. Again, I want to put that out there that these are just my opinion, not something that's law, but they are my opinion. I just think that we have to get back to tradition. I think we're getting away from it too much. And when we have people out there that don't understand what it is to be a Mason.
And since the name of the show is a historical light, and I think that speaks right to history. I mean, for operative Masons, they're not going to let some young guy who doesn't know how to square up a stone move on up, that doesn't know how to use, a hammer or a chisel. They're not going to let him go. He's going to stay there until he figures it out. Again, my opinion, but from a historical perspective, that makes sense to me. So since we're there now, Grand Lodge of Ohio, again, this is being recorded April 15th of 2022. This past month had a one-day conferral, citizen to Master Mason in one day, and they put 700 and some guys through, and that was a small class. There's many other jurisdictions. This is the AF and AM. This is not Prince Hall Masonry there. So let me be very clear there. Because everything I've ever seen, this is normally the non-Prince Hall grand jurisdictions that do these one-day classes. What's your guys' thought on these one-day classes, citizen to Master Mason? I mean, just hearing Johnnie, I think I'm going to know his opinion already.
Absolutely. When we do that, again, it's a disservice to that particular brother. It's a disservice to the Masonic order as a whole. That brother is not ready to walk out into the world and present himself as a Mason because he don't know anything. He don't understand what it is to become a Mason or be a Mason. There's a certain level of responsibility that you carry, and that's taught to you along the way through that process.
You must make suitable proficiency. You have to. For a one-day session, that should be unacceptable.
I'm not a great host because I can't even argue that. Because I'm right there, and I would guess most of the people watching and listening are right there with you and with me. So much for that discussion point. So thanks, guys. But it just amazes me, and I know sometimes those one-day classes are driven by appendant or concordant bodies that are wanting to help their membership, or maybe it's a Grand Lodge effort to maybe up the treasury mistakenly. But our past Grand Master, Most Worshipful Michael Stoops, went through our records, and for years we've been saying the retention rate is the same, whether you went through the one-day class or this all the way in one day or some sort of truncated, and that's 100% wrong. And there's a nice article in our magazine. It's 100% wrong.
Yes, sir.
And you talked about our Grand Secretary, past Grand Master Tracy Bloom, and I'm going to attribute it to him, but he always tells me, Daren, we don't have a membership problem. We've got a retention problem. And I think, at least for my opinion of the Grand Lodge of Kansas, AF and AM, we don't do what you just said, Johnny. We don't teach them all those things they need to know to get our hooks into them, to make them want to love and stick around in Blue Lodge, even if they go on to something else, to keep coming back to the Blue Lodge. We missed that. And it sounds like you guys in Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Kansas are just getting those hooks in for sure.
Well, Daren, I'll tell you this same story that I tell the brothers in Prince Hall. So there's something that has me sitting here 30 plus years later. So those brothers that came in the organization before me did what they had to do. They showed me what right looks like so that I would have longevity in the order. So they did what they had to do. It was their time to do that. Think about those challenges that those brothers had. Think about the, access to things that kept them going. They had challenges just like we have challenges right now, yet they did what they had to do. We have brothers sitting around the lodges right now, 30, 40, and 50 years, sitting there waiting to see if we could get back to those traditions. And you'll hear me saying that, traditions. When we get away from the traditions, we lose our membership, right? We don't retain our membership. When we cut corners, we don't retain our membership. So again, those brothers back in the day did what they had to do. Now it's our responsibility to do the same thing, to create that environment, to make those brothers want to stay in the order so that they can carry it on just like we're doing 30 and 40 years later. If we don't do those things, if we don't set the conditions for that, we're going to lose them. That's just what it is.
Wow. Deputy Grandmaster, I mean, I know he said it great, but what do you think?
I concur with what he said. I can't change a word out of his mouth. You have to set up, put it inside of them. If like a microwave, you get them in, you get them out. But if you put some instruction into them, they know how to serve and keep going.
Wow. For me, I don't want to say it seems mind blowing because that is such an obvious concept. Yet there are so many brothers who, in my opinion, don't get that. And they just want to get him on the Master Mason payroll. And then we wonder why they don't come back. But we need to go back. How many of us are going to go back and capture this video and just get that sound bite of Johnny saying that and play it over and over in our lodge for Masonic education? If you need the clip, just get a hold of me or Alex and I'll give it to your lodge, because that was spot on, brother. Spot on. So thank you for that. Oh, wow. I do also want to mention a couple other items that occurred over the past few years after that capital dedication, just so other people know we weren't a one and done, and we're not a one and done. COVID kind of put a shot on get-togethers. After that capital dedication, I tell you what, the passions were running high. I know before us, we'd done multiple dedications, and I know, looking back through the history books, right after we did the compact that got us working together officially, there was a dedication over in Yates Center, Kansas, Podunkville. And no offense to the brothers, got a great lodge there and lodges all around. They're very passionate Masons, but as Kansas goes, it's kind of a small town in the middle of nowhere. But they did a dedication, a cornerstone there, and that started a whole bunch of several ones, just like Brother Jeffrey said he went to. And at that dedication, shortly thereafter, Grandmaster Althouse was made a member of one of the local lodges. And then shortly thereafter, one of the Kansas Grandmasters was made a member of a Prince Hall lodge. Just like that, because that's the way things work. And it's so nice to see more than just mutual recognition, the working together. And I know brothers from both grand jurisdictions have joined lodges in the other jurisdiction. And for those that aren't aware, I got notes here, but I'm going to lose them all. But we have a member of Emporia Lodge, and he joined, it's St. John Lodge. They're in Emporia, Prince Hall affiliation. Worked through the chairs and became master of that lodge. So he's past master Prince Hall. This year, he was appointed as Grand Senior Deacon, which is traditionally the start of the progressive lining on the AF&M side. So in a few years, by the will and pleasure of the craft, we will have a Prince Hall Mason as Grand Master AF&AM. So I expect a lot more historic things to happen. For those watching, the brother is not, he's a white man. So whatever that means nothing. But to me, it's wonderful because in some places that would never, ever happen. So, sorry, these things make me so proud. I get off track. This is why Alex doesn't like to have me host a show. We had in 2016, so we did in March, we had the Capitol, and then that following year in the fall, there was I don't want to call it a joint raising because it was a dual raising. Both Grand Lodges got together and raised a brother from each grand jurisdiction. And that lodge hall up in North Kansas City was packed. We had a great meal, and the degree work was flawless. Again, some confusion from the AF&M brothers. And then from the Prince Hall brothers going, why aren't you doing the stuff we can't talk about here? So always enjoyable to see that confusion in degree work, and we can all laugh about it. And then the following year, we had a table lodge together in Emporia in that big lodge hall. And again, it was great because there was no sides. Everybody was intermingled. I mean, we were one Grand Lodge of Kansas on all those.
And that's where I screwed up at. But nobody knew because me and Tony, we was going at it, and I had a part, he had a part, and I took over his part, and we just laughed. He said, "Since you took my part, I'm gonna take your part." Nobody knew we had a good time.
So with that, I know it's about 10 minutes till the top of the hour, and right at 9 o'clock, we're going to have a toast. And at that table lodge, they made commemorative cannons. And I'd like to say that Johnny and I have our commemorative cannons, but I think we gave them away to worthy brothers who couldn't be there. But Jeff, did you say you had your cannon still? Oh, looky there. Looky there. Look at that guy hogging his cannon. I looked and looked and looked, and I do recall what happened to mine. Sometimes in my role, I get to be behind the scenes and see what Grandmasters do when nobody's looking. And Grandmaster Coleman and Presley, they started the table lodge early and were there late. And I ended up collecting some empty soldiers and had them autographed. And then I put them together, and I'm going to say with my cannon like that, and we auctioned it off for charity. But seeing those two Grand Masters, again, I can't speak anything because I do value my membership in the craft. But they were like high school best friends. You'd have never known that we were from separate jurisdictions. And of course, I guess maybe I make a big deal of that because it's like I keep expecting there to be differences. And I'm always shocked when there's not. Because
was that Grandmaster Presley at the time?
It was. It was.
That's what I thought.
And it could be the fact that they're both cops. I don't know. I mean, a little known fact.
That's what it is. double
brothers. And I'm just always amazed because I hear all this nonsense from other places that they don't get along. And every time I see somebody, it's like, we're high school friends. And actually we are, I
Yeah.
think.
Yep.
And that's why for tonight, I've got you guys here because every time I see you, you give me that great feeling. And it's nice to know that I'm catching up with you guys in my follicle challenged life. But so I do have a question for both of you. And I struggled with this when I was new because my first event, I saw uh, Larry Coleman there, and he was one of the Grand Wardens. I was trying to figure out when he'd be Grand Master, and he was trying to explain to me that it doesn't work that way, Darren. It doesn't work that way. We don't have a progressive line. And on the AF&M side, it traditionally progresses Grand Senior Deacon, Junior Warden, Senior Warden, Deputy Grand, and Grand Master. But on Prince Hall, Kansas, it's actually, I don't want to say competitive, but it's a true election every year. Is that how you would
It's a
phrase
true
it?
election. It's a true election. I wish we had something smooth as the AF and AM, but we do have a true election. So it's in our Constitution and bylaws that our Grand Master can serve 2 to 3, well, up to 3 years.
And those don't have to be consecutive. Because we've had some that have been one and out and then come back, right?
We sure have. Yes, sir.
And I did see you bite your lip, Jeffrey, because I know there's been some interesting elections, as I recall.
Yes, you've been there. You've been there.
So,
Hey, Darren, I would like to share
Yes.
one with you.
yes.
At the time, Jeff and I were running against each other for, I think it was Grand Orator. And who was your past Grand Master that liked to smoke the cigars?
Oh, Lynn Byer. Lynn Byer.
Byers. So,
Yeah.
so Lynn attended our session at the time we were having the elections. And Lynn sat right next to me. So the election started. Both Jeff and I were running against each other. Jeff 10, Jeff 11, Johnny 2, Johnny 3. We were getting close to the end of it, right? Lynn looked at me and said, well, Johnny, I don't think you're going to make it. I was like, Lynn, I can count, man. I'll never forget that, man. So every time he see me, man, we just start laughing at each other because of that moment. So Lynn, I can count, man. I don't need your help, Oh man.
Oh,
So yeah, that was pretty funny.
Appreciate that. So, how does a person plan to be? I mean, if you're running for Grand Master or whatever office, I mean, how do you plan for that? I mean, because if there's no, in my mind, continuity of plan or anything, or because everybody's may have their plan if they're, how does that work?
So most Grand Masters try to, if you don't mind, I would like to say a few words.
Yes, sir.
So most Grand Masters try to create what we call like a 3 to 5 year strategic plan, and he tries to get the rest of the line to buy in on that strategic plan, so that if anything happens, everybody understand what happens next in that strategic plan. So over those 3 or 4 years, 3 to 5 years, we know what's going on.
So, I'm trying to think how to phrase this, because Grandmaster Winbush is on his second term, or is he on his third term right now?
Second
term. So, presuming that he will run for a third term. I would presume that. So, Johnny, will you run for deputy Grand Master? Or do you guys? I mean, I'm not trying to put you on your spot, but do you guys plan to just freeze in place for 1 year, one more year behind Grandmaster Winbush?
Amongst the brothers that we have in line right now, we have a lot of respect for each other. And so we respect the person in front of us wishes. So if he wishes to stay there, then we'll just stay in place until such time as he moves on.
That seems so simple. I don't know how other jurisdictions don't get that. I'm just amazed. There's some jurisdictions where that is just a brother wants it, and he just the heck with the guy ahead of him, and they make it, and then brothers do not like each other. Wow. But there's also a secret part of me that wants to have Lynn Byer there to watch you run against him, Johnny, just to see if you can get him back. Just saying.
Lynn is not invited anymore.
Oh my goodness. That is brotherly love all the way around. Oh, so, well, we are coming up. We got about 3 minutes to the top of the hour. So for those watching live or even on the rewatch or on the podcast, make sure you get a beverage of choice. You don't have to have a fancy cannon like some of us, Deputy Grand.
Yeah.
Have something ready. But top of the hour, we're going to ask the Deputy Grand Master to lead us all in a toast. And that's something that the Grand Lodge of England used to do for absent brethren or missing brethren. And Alex continued that during COVID and kind of started at least in my opinion, he started it, and it caught on nationwide, doing a 9 o'clock toast every night during COVID when we couldn't meet at all. And he's continued that on this show. So I thought we'd continue that. I haven't done anything else he does on the show. But we'll do that, of course, because I think that is most appropriate. Several years ago, I mentioned we had a Midwest conference of Grand Lodges, and we'd invited Grandmaster Winbush to speak. Well, Grandmaster Coleman, who threw Grandmaster Winbush on the bus. But coming up at the Masonic Con Kansas, that's a plug to go register. There's still 35 spots left. Right Worshipful Jonte Gold is going to be one of the speakers, and I believe he's going to be speaking on Prince Hall Masonry there. And that doesn't seem to happen a lot at these Masonic Con things, that a Prince Hall brother gets invited to that. I'm not sure why, and that's a call out to everybody. If you're not, let's get on that, please. But I'd encourage everybody to go look at that Masonic Con Kansas and look at the speaker lineup and get to that. And we need this integration there more and more and more. There's brothers flying in from all over the country to come be a part of this, and we need to show them what Kansas is all about. So That's my plug again for Kansas Masonic Con and the unity that we can have from brothers all over the country. And we are at the top of the hour, and Right Worshipful Brother Deputy Grand Master, I would ask that you'd lead us in tonight's toast.
Tonight's toast. We need to send this all the way down south because we need to continue to spread brotherly love, relief, and truth for these Georgia brothers who just came together, and for us Kansas Masons, we continue to be together as one. We need to continue to do things for the community and be true to our hearts of what we are doing. This here is to brotherly love, relief, and truth. Hear, hear.
Hear, hear.
Hear, hear.
I learned that down in Emporia.
Well, but whose part was it? Was it yours or was it Tony's? We'll never know.
It was Tony's.
We'll never know. Well, brothers, I do thank you for coming on this evening. I have talked with Grandmaster Winbush and Grandmaster Johnson. I know they have plans for get together this year. Neither one's revealing their plans. So I'm looking forward to great things, whether it's just a picnic or some big fancy event that maybe Johnny and I can get a shot glass at or firing cannon.
Yeah.
Just saying. Just saying. But brothers, we could probably talk for 2 or 3 more hours. And what's interesting is, Jeffrey, when I talked to you on the phone the other day, you said, I can only go about 15 minutes, Daren. And here we are. That hour just flew by for us anyway. The listeners may still be, oh my gosh, are they done yet? But I hope they can hear the true emotion and passion in our voices. And that's what Brotherhood is all about. And the next time Alex is gone, I expect the 3 of us will get back together. Hopefully, Alex will have you on himself, and we can just run over him together.
Hey,
That's what we'll do. But brothers, I have had a great show with you this evening. And, you know, I don't know how to say thank you, other than just saying thank you, because you guys mean the world to me. And you guys have taught me so much by doing so many little things. The things that you did for me on the Capitol building, that Jeffrey given me that guidance. To basically don't worry about that kind of stuff because it doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. And for Johnnie going above and beyond doing all that stuff and getting that cornerstone up there from wherever you made it from. And it is guys like you that make guys like me and those people listening want to join Freemasonry, stay in Freemasonry, and be like you. And that's what we strive to be, is to be guys like you. So brothers, again, thank you very much, and I will see you soon.